Hi, Blind Guy Garage. What you should see right there is it's a Briggs Stratton single cylinder Intech. But what I'm about to show y'all is very common with all small engines and engines of other sorts. A lot of engines anyway. So what we have here is a flywheel. We have magnets in the back that runs your stator. The stator's not on this. It's been stripped off because this motor's trash. You move it and it makes noises. They have a key cut in the housing here. Hopefully y'all can see that. Well, this one's sheared off. You see the key is still stuck in there. Here's what they look like, little pieces of aluminum or steel. These are steel. Sometimes they're steel, sometimes they're aluminum. It all depends on the make and model. Sometimes Briggs runs steel, and I'm going to try to pop this out. I'm going to tell y'all a couple of little... It wants to tip over. I'm trying to pop it out with one of these old keys. It's coming. Just be patient. It's coming out. Come on out of there. There it went. It fell. Dang it. It fell down in the motor. But I wanted to show y'all what that... Okay. So I'm going to have to flip the motor over. You hear it? You hear that? That's parts inside the engine just kind of falling around. She no good no more. You no worky. Let's see. Now where'd it go? Where did you go? Well, shucks. You might just have to take my word for it. It's sheared, dang it. Chunks of aluminum from other unfortunate events. Hey, I need that. It's a bit laying on the ground. It may have been in that motor. Well, sugar. Crap, can't find it. Anyhow, the key slides onto the shaft right yonder. And these here are a tapered shaft. So you put your key in there. Just a different size. They have all different sizes. And the aluminum key is made to shear. And my only understanding of that is maybe they're doing it to make it where it doesn't bend a valve or something when it backfires. But you set your key in there. I like to use a little bit of grease to smush in there, and then it holds it in place. The next thing is just a little bit of grease. We don't need to lube this shaft. Is this and that need to be lined up, and you can see this without taking the whole engine apart. You take the little cover off, and you can take the big nut or bolt out that goes off in there. I think there's a bolt over here in this. Ow. Yeah. So you have a big old bolt usually sits in there, and it goes. There's some washers under it typically, and that holds that down. Whoops. Butterfingers today. So that's what it'll do. Now, do I have a sheared key? When do I need to check this to see if I've got a sheared key? Well, what will happen is you'll be sometimes they'll backfire really hard out the intake, so bad that we're blowing carburetors pieces and such, and all kinds of stuff's going on, right? Another thing that'll happen is, hey, that's a good part to keep, is you'll have issues every time you go to start it. It'll backfire in some sort. It'll still crank, like it'll still rotate. If you were to unhook the ignition coil from the spark plug, it would still crank. So that would tell us that we more than likely still have a good cam. And I'll do another video on, do I have a bad cam? So it'll backfire one way or another, or it'll crank, pow, and then it won't crank, or it'll crank some more, and it doesn't seem to have any kind of rhythm, because it'll pop, just randomly pop out the intake or the exhaust all over the place. We never can predict what this thing's going to do, but it pops somehow, but it cranks. So typically what that is this key has sheared clean in two, and now your timing is just randomly off, and it spins. This little thing will spin a little bit. We're not talking about spin 180 degrees or nothing. We're talking about spinning a little bit here or there, because, and if you keep on and on, you can actually damage the crankshaft. So what we would have there is, this is stripped. Now, to pull the flywheel off, yeah, you got to go through some work. You pull the blower cover off, and then you take your bolt and you stick it back in here. You put you a big socket on it, and you pry up with a pry bar, not on something you're going to break. You need to pay attention. Make sure you're not going to, you want to take your coil off. You don't have to. Not on most engines, but you want to look, make sure. I would prefer you take it off. That way you don't run a risk of damaging it. And you don't want to run your pry bar deep in there, because you don't want to hit these magnets and stuff, or pry real hard on these teeth of your starter gear. You pry up on that and you tap on the socket with a hammer, and you're going to have to hit it kind of hard. You'll notice when you pry down or push down on your pry bar, it'll pick up the crankshaft. See? That little bit of movement is all you need. So you hold this up with the pry bar, and then you're hitting it with the hammer, and you have your socket on the bolt so that you're not tearing up the bolt head. You need to run that bolt in as far as you can stand it. You keep doing that, and everybody's like, well, you tap all the way around. No, I don't. Typically, we ain't got to tap all the way around. I had my kids out here tearing these down. A 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they were getting them done quick, you know. So it's not super difficult. You get you a concrete block is the best thing I've found to use, because it's sturdy. If you have the engine off, if you have it on the machine, it's not that big a deal. We have a motor there I could do a few videos on, because it's got a hole in the back. But so once you do that, you pop it off, you go get you another key, grab the broken stuff, because you're going to have to take it to match it up, because I'm telling you, they run different stuff in them. It's always the same size, but you got to be careful about how tall it is. So if you can get both pieces, or order it direct from Briggs, that's what you need to do. Because if you get it too tall, I used to have a bunch of them. If you have it too tall and you run that bolt down, it'll just bust this whole side of this flywheel clean off. And then what? Then you gotta text me in the comments and see if I can get you a flywheel, because I've got 30 of them. So that's real quick. And Derek, this video is for you. You know who you are. Haha. I told you I'd say your name in the video. But it works on trimmers. It's a possible potential problem with trimmers, with well, basically anything that's in that trailer, or like those. It'll happen with any of them. It's a very common thing. A carburetor gets a little bit out of tune or something like that, and we have combustion happen on the upstroke of the piston, and that little key can't handle it, and it just strips it off, which is a good thing, because if that happens and nothing gives, that's super easy to fix like this, what are the other potential problems? Well, I mean, we got bent valves. Push rod would be the least drastic scenario. It could break some serious internal stuff. I would imagine it would possibly even snap a rod or compress a rod or something like that. So, I mean, the rods in these things are typically only aluminum. I mean, you rarely, on maybe antique stuff, we got maybe steel rods, but most of the time they're aluminum rods, and they're pretty decent. I mean, some of these motors, they ain't cheap. I mean, some of them are a couple $1,000. So it's just those Briggs Stratton intakes are about $600 or $700 new. So trying to make sure you keep them working. I'm putting that little bit up I found. Trying to make sure you keep them working is a good, is a good skill to know. But so yeah, that's the do I have a broken key? And I will tell you, if you think you're out of time, 99.9% of the time, that is the problem. And you cannot get these motors out of time any other way unless you've been inside it and you've got the camshaft off or something. Other than that, there you go. And same process for if your stator magnets come off your flywheel, and sometimes you'll notice it'll be a little crunchy. You pop that flywheel off and check it out, and then check me out in the comments. Holler at me, hey, I got a problem. Briggs Stratton intake, single cylinder V-twin, or Kohler Command, all of the gambit, all my magnets fell off. Holler at me. Don't everybody wants to do the glue it back on. Most of the time damage is too far, or you get some crazy glue and do it, and it comes off again, destroys another stator, and maybe even worse. So bye, you guys. Y'all have a blessed one, and like, share, subscribe. I hope this helped you guys out. My hands are making me stutter. Bye.